Going live. Let's see if I am live! It says I am live. Very cool. Okay. So this is my first live stream in forever, so I apologize if some things are a little off. It looks like I'm a little blurry. I've been trying to figure it out. I don't know if there's something compression related. So we're just gonna have to do, right? If you're watching this, can you just make sure that you can hear me? I tested this yesterday and you're supposed to be able to hear me, but I don't know for sure. So just let me know if everything is sounding okay. And let's see, stop streaming, go live. Am I actually live? It says end stream, so I think I should be live, but I'm not having any comments come in, so I don't know. You always think these things are gonna, like, you prepare for them. I prepared all yesterday for this. This turned out, I don't know if it's working now. It's kind of the constant issue with things like live stream, right? And I haven't even know. Oh, okay. Now I can hear you. Okay, I'm getting comments. I'm getting comments now, so I feel like I'm connected now. I felt like I was disconnected, but now I'm connected. We can hear you loud and clear. Yes, great. I feel a little bit better now. I was thinking, okay, I had set everything up, and yet nothing is working. Okay. So, welcome to this live stream. My name is Linn. This is the Darbin Orvar channel. I primarily do woodworking and making and stuff relating to that world here on YouTube. Yes, first live stream, Ruben. Yes, and hi from France. Bonjour. Yes. So, this is fun. So anyway, I have been wanting to do a live stream for some time, but I don't know, just the stars haven't aligned. But yesterday I was like, yes, tomorrow I'm going to do a live stream, and since it is my first one, I wanted to kind of take it a little bit easy and just do like an FAQ, talk about woodworking, that kind of thing. Before I try to get too ambitious, I figured it's best to, you know, try out the waters. Yeah, if it worked, it wouldn't be called technology. Yes, I agree. Things don't always work out just right. So anyway, I'm currently in my little shop. This is my little hideaway space. This is what I call, well, I don't know, this used to be a shed, and a couple of years ago I turned it into a little, it's maybe too ambitious to really call it a workshop, although I do have a workbench and I do have hand tools, and I do a fair amount of woodworking in here, but I also do a fair amount of other stuff like sewing and dye fabric and painting, and I do a lot of like computer work in here, a lot of editing. And let me tell you, it's just nice to have somewhere to get away from everybody. It's just yours. Then of course we have another workshop, a big workshop, and that's where all the tools are. This is the mini workshop, and in the big workshop I have a lot of toys. I would say there's a CNC and a table saw, you know, all the main woodworking tools, and batteries and stuff like that. So I thought today I just kind of want to hang out and talk about woodworking. It is weird with live streams, isn't it? Because I see comments coming in and I want to talk about things, and yet I'm trying to look into the camera, yet I don't hear anybody actually interacting with me. It is weird, isn't it? It's like you're in your own little bubble, right? So anyway, I have a couple of topics that I wanted to go over and talk about, but if you have any questions or anything that you want to ask me, feel free to do that as well. But let me do just a quick rundown, I suppose. So yes, my name is Linn, and I've been on YouTube for quite a long time. I was just thinking about it before, and I had my first video at 2014 on YouTube, which, you know, it hasn't sounded that far away for quite some time, but then I just counted up how long it has been, and it is a long time. So anyway, I've been doing woodworking and making on YouTube a really long time. So I just love the world of making. My channel, Darbin Orvar, is I guess it's a little bit all over the place because it relates to creating and making in so many different ways. I very much like building and woodworking and making, but then I feel like, leatherworking, so much fun, and then sewing, so much fun, and electronics, and it's like a whole, I don't really separate it where it's one subject, whereas I know that a lot of people do, and they're like, okay, I do hand tool woodworking only, or I just do CNC stuff, and that's great. I'm having a hard time though sticking to one thing, so I tend to do a lot of things. Let's see. We have Tom Hoffman asking, do you ever give woodworking classes in your area? No, I have not done that. It's one of those things that every now and then I think that would be kind of fun. I've had a couple of like requests to do some things like at local libraries, and even woodcraft, but it hasn't really materialized. But I think that would be really fun, because one of the things about making videos on your own in your isolated little world is that it is isolating at times, and I think it is really fun with interaction and interacting with people. Not to mention, I think it would be really just kind of useful to it would make you look at building and making things in a different world if you have to convey that information in a physical sense, right, in a location. I think that would be really fun, so I would like to do that someday. I wondered for a while why the channel is called Darbin Orvar. Is that someone's name? Okay, this is kind of a old recurring question. The name is based on my dog's name. My dog's name is Darwin. When I started the channel, I didn't want to use my real name. I wanted to just have something completely unique and different, and I used to call my dog Darbin Orvar. It was like a nickname on Darwin, so I was like looking at my dog and I was like, oh, that's perfect. I don't think anyone else is gonna have that name. And then it just kind of stuck, and now that's what it is. And I do kind of like it because it is very unique and different, and it's also rather interesting sometimes when people write you emails and messages, because you can know right away if that person has watched any of my stuff, because my name is Linn, you know. But if they keep calling me Darbin, it's kind of an interesting telltale sign right there as well. But anyway, so that's the name of the channel. I have learned a bunch watching your videos over the years. Much appreciated. Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's nice. It's blah blah blah. I guess that is the kind of the crux when you're sitting here talking. You're talking and you're rambling on a little bit, because normally I create videos, right? And I try to do them. I try to be rather ruthless when I edit. I try to really avoid rambling on about things, where I cut. I was like, okay, that was unnecessary. Here I'm just kind of rambling on about things, and here I am sitting now just rambling on about things, you know. So I guess that is a good pointer. I should get back to talking about woodworking and making, so that I don't just go and like drone out. But I was thinking today, I really kind of want to go over the concept of woodworking as a hobby, right? Because that is, when I think about the concept of a hobby, there is a joy behind it, right? And it also is not a professional concept. It's not something you do for a living. Then that's really kind of how I look at woodworking and making in general, because while I occasionally sell some things, and I sell wax polish and things like that, I'm not a professional carpenter by any means. I don't the most time I don't really know what I'm doing, or I try to learn as I'm doing, and then I kind of am excited to share what I learn. But for me, woodworking is definitely a hobby, as are basically all the things related to the making. So I was thinking before, like, what does it mean when something is a hobby? Well, it means that you are continuously learning, right? That you are not an expert in that sense, even though you may strive to be an expert. And it's just something joyful, something that you build your skills over time. Something that you also feel really excited about, right? Something that you can't wait to do when you wake up in the morning, and when you're doing other things you wish you were really in the shop woodworking, or making, or whatever it is that you are interested in doing. I think that is really the key that is really the key of the word hobby and woodworking in that sense. Just got stuck reading some comments. And I also know how frustrating that is when people have live stream, and then you see them kind of glance over and reading comments, and then you kind of lose your train of thought. So I'm gonna try not to do that too much. Okay, now I was thinking about what kind of projects I like to do more than anything, and I think, well, first of all, it's always kind of fun when you go into something new, right? While it's fun to perfect a skill that you already know, it's always fun to learn something new. But I was lately I've been kind of really thinking about I've been thinking that there's two different kinds of woodworking. There is the kind that you do with an end goal in mind. And in that sense, you are less concerned about the process. Like being in the shop, you know, getting a feel for the wood, all of that. You're like, okay, I need a shelf in this room, or I need a table and I want to get it done. And when I think about those things, I think about power tools, I think about plywood, I think a utilitarian sense of wood. And it's a very useful like point of view, right? Because there's an end goal in mind. And then there is the other concept of woodworking to me that I've been kind of getting more into lately, and that's the concept of I'm not gonna say the romantic notion, but there is a kind of concept where you're getting really interested in the joinery or the tools involved or the skill, and it's more really about the process of doing it. There's more about the applying things you learn, and it can really take however long it takes, right? Maybe you want to see how a new different kind of wood species is to work with. And that's like you have the practical, and then you have that kind of like playing sense. And I've been really getting into the playing sense lately, thinking about pieces that I want to build, playing with the joinery and different tools and the wood. I think the carving and hand tools really lend itself well into this other category. And it's less about, I just need to get this done. And when you are thinking about it as, I think the hobby concept really falls really well under that secondary category of being something that is just really joyful and where you just kind of want to learn things. So the other thing that I'm kind of thinking about right now, and always always kind of happens right after the new year, is like spring cleaning in terms of the shop and the tools and getting things organized. Well, I kind of think about that in my whole life, right? I think about that in relation to my whole my pantry and my closet and all of that, but it extends to the workshop as well. And really kind of think about paring down, if you know what I mean, where you want to not have unnecessary tools, right? Because it's really fun to collect tools, right? And it's really fun to have a lot of tools. But then when you come down to it and you think about what is it that I'm actually using, what could I maybe sell? What could I use in a different way? What could I give away to someone else who needs it? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now, that mentality of first of all, just organizing everything you have. Sometimes you don't even realize what you have, right? What's hidden in your drawers. And sometimes it's just overwhelming. And whenever I feel a little bit overwhelmed in that sense, I think to take stock of what you have and organize everything is always kind of a nice starting point. Not to mention it gets you excited because you find like, oh, I forgot I had this piece of wood. Oh, what can I use this for? Oh, I forgot I had this chisel in this drawer. And then you kind of it cascade things around. So to clean things up in relating to supplies and tools, I think it's the absolute best, and this is a good time of year to do that. So what else falls under that category is kind of just cleaning your tools and sharpening them, putting wax polish to prevent rust, just getting everything in order so that all your stuff is nice and taken care of, and you get rid of stuff that you don't need. Which can be really hard. I'm the kind of person who hates to get rid of things. I love to just you never know when you're going to need it, right? You never know that one day when you're going to need something. So anyway, I'm just going to check in with the comments real quick. So I've learned a lot from you. Thank you, Marius. I really appreciate that. That's really cool to hear. Sometimes when you're doing this stuff, you kind of, sometimes you're reminded, but sometimes you feel like it's as isolating as well, right? And that there's other people on the other side of that screen watching what you're doing. It's like you know it in the back of your head, but at the same time you always kind of forget about it to some degree, especially when you've been doing it for a while, so that's kind of weird. Let's see. We also need some decent bookshelves. Your ideas or tips are useful. Okay, someone else, John says here he also should get rid of some tools that are not used. I tend to hang on to them because I may need them. And that's the point, that's the thing, right? Like, you don't know when you might need something in the future, right? You think that maybe one day I'm going to need this weird bending jig that I've used once. Or it could be whatever. It could be a bigger tool too that was more of an investment or something that you were really excited about once, but then your interests have kind of shifted a little bit, and what you thought you were going to be really into, you're not so into anymore. But you kind of have this thought of yourself as a person who would be into that tool, right? Or who one day will use that tool. So it's always kind of tricky to think about what is worth getting rid of. And then of course space is always an issue, right? And personally, I actually think small workspaces is better in some ways. Okay, this space right here, very small, so it forces you to be much more ruthless in terms of what you can keep in here and what you can't keep in there. And I don't have any power tools in here. I've learned that from my old shop in Oregon, that I don't actually like power tools in a small space unless absolutely necessary, because it's dusty and it gets dirty. I like to kind of keep a clean space. But then when you have we have the big workshop. The big workshop is relatively big. It's a 2.5 car garage that we have there, which is great from the point of view that you can fit things. You can fit the large table saw and the CNC machine and things like that. So it's like such a privilege, and like it's great. I really appreciate it. But at the same time, it's also this large area, and it's harder to find different spaces when you have a really big space to work things. And even if you kind of like in your mind, you're like, okay, I have this is my my cutting area, and this is my hand tool area or whatever, it still can be a little bit overwhelming and hard to define. So I think like actual rooms, smaller workshops, my ideal would just be to have lots of little workshops that all fill different functions, where you have like, oh, this is the leather space, and this is the table saw, bandsaw, jointer. Yeah, I guess all those tools kind of are in one space. But my point is that large workshops are hard to organize, and large workshops are difficult to manage in a way that it can quickly get messy and overwhelming. A neighborhood tool lending library is a great way to have access to tools without owning them. Yes, that is a great idea. Or just if you have a makerspace in your area as well. I mean, you don't have to own everything, right? And if it's something that you use once for a job, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to own that tool, right? Paring down and sharing tools is actually a really useful thing. I don't have a local tool library nearby here, and in some ways, this is what I do, right? It's a hobby, but it's also like, yeah. So so Trevor says that my local tool library has a lathe, a laser cutter, a table saw, and a bunch of tools that I can check out for a week. I mean, how cool is that, to be able to borrow tools that you need and bring them home to you? I think that is awesome, really cool. Okay, Mark says, I made a number of your projects, including your waxes, the walnut blocks with fairy lights. Oh yeah, actually I was just looking at that. I have that here, and it's I need to fix my wiring because something broke on it, but it is such a great project. And I always get a lot of comments from people who make them as gifts or something too. And it's kind of fun because you can customize it in so many different ways depending on the wood you use or yeah, the size of it, the glass or whatever. So I agree, that is a really fun one. Okay, Jason says, I've been stuck in the organization rut for a while. I spontaneously purchased a lot of equipment that all needs restoration a while ago, but realized I'm not into that, so space is being wasted. I think that is an excellent example of, you get overly excited about something, you picture yourself as somebody who wants to do that, but then you might not have the time or the resources to actually dive into that or give it the attention that it requires. And then it is tricky with things like that, and then it's really hard to think what's my path going, where am I going from here? Yeah, let's see. Do you miss Oregon? Are you gradually get closer to Sweden? I always miss places. I miss, so originally I'm from Sweden. If you could hear that on my accent, usually that becomes clearer the longer I speak. If I just meet somebody for the first time, they may not pick up on my accent right away, but the more I talk to them, the more like it just slips out. I don't know, it's hard to not show that. But yes, I miss Oregon, I miss Sweden. We live in Virginia now, which I think is really nice and really fun. I mean, when you think about places, though, I primarily miss people, right? I miss people who live there or who live there, and you're farther away from people, and that's always kind of difficult. But here in Virginia, I think is really great from the point of view that is the weather is really great. There's a good amount of like lumber yards in the area too, which I really appreciate. I was thinking how difficult it would be to live in an area, and there are lots of them in the country, that have no wood supply, right? Where you have to go to your local Home Depot to buy oak for an outrageous price point. That would be really difficult in my mind. So having like local sawmills and lumber yards and actual trees that grow in your area, I really appreciate. Oregon was great from that point of view too. Oregon had some great wood, and I made some great friends in Oregon who had great wood. But Virginia is pretty good from that point of view too. Let's see. Have you been or are you planning to teach your little ones to work with wood as well? Yes, my son, he's 5. He's in the shop all the time. He's primarily interested in wires right now. He is always a robot, and he likes switches and things like that. So he does a lot of that stuff. Very much enjoy wires, and it kind of puts me like the concept of electronics in that sense, I think is a really great point of view for kids. It's a great intro to making. Because you can set up a system that is, safe, doesn't, using low voltage and switches and things like that. And whereas woodworking, especially for younger kids, I don't know if you want to give like your 5-year-old a knife and things like that. I wouldn't have a problem giving him a knife as he gets a little bit older, as long as you show him how to use it, of course. But at a certain point, there's a little bit woodworking is always best when the tools are super sharp, right? So I think that electronics is a really great point, like homeschooling concept and just interaction for children in general, who likes the world of making. And one of my favorite things with electronics is how, and I use electronics in a rather broad sense, like I kind of put lighting under that umbrella. I think being able to integrate lighting into your projects is like so cool, and really turns, like for example, I recently made a floating shelf. Nothing really complicated. I used floating shelf hardware because it was something that I had been sitting around and doing spring cleaning, as I was saying. You find things in your drawers that like, oh, I forgot I had this, I should use this, right? Excuse me. Okay, so a floating shelf, and then this was going to go in an office, and then I was thinking like this really would be useful to have lights in here, because then you get a shelf but you also get lights, and I really think the lighting part is almost more useful than the shelf part, right? So just being able to integrate lighting in a project, I found to be really helpful, and of course you can do a lot of other things too. But that's kind of like the most useful thing, right? Okay, let's see what we got here. Brewster says, I've been following since the Instructable days. That was a while ago. Well, yeah. Love the different aspects of DIY that you explore. And then I have Allah says, I'm from Egypt, desert. We only have palm tree wood, which is not good for anything. All wood is imported. Yeah, can you imagine? That must be really difficult and really expensive. So let's see. I'm just getting caught here looking at things. Give me a second here. Let's see. I'm in my space here, and it's really cold. I have the heater on, which is kind of on the loud side. I hope it's okay. I'm gonna have some tea right here. So, it's kind of weird doing a live stream, I have to say, in the sense that you realize that you want to keep talking, but you need like you need like a little break too as well. It's weird. I remember when you switched bandsaw blades. Are you still happy with your Avid CNC machine, Mark? Hi, Mark. Yes, the Avid machine has been really great. Haven't had any issues with that. It's been really nice to have that large size and being able to have the rotary attachment as well. Kind of get into projects like, I don't use it consistently, but it's so good when you want to dash something out quickly, or when you need precision. So I can't say enough good things about the Avid machine, and not to mention their customer support is great. And I hear that from a lot of people. It's not just me who's had a good experience with them, because they're really friendly, which is also really nice because there's like quite a lot of things with the CNC machine that can get confusing, right? And things that can go a little bit wrong, and it's really nice to be able to have help when you need it. Just wanting to say hi. I'm working on trying to listen in. Legacy of Bob. Cool, Bob. Glad to have you here. You're doing great. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate that as well. Yeah. Let me also... It's like I'm looking at this as kind of a test run, because initially I had plans to do this live stream around a topic and then do some work on the bench and stuff, but then I was thinking it's probably not a good idea to get that ambitious at first. Is Darwin still with us? Yes, he's out running around in the backyard. He's going to be 11 years old this year. He's a golden retriever, yeah. Okay, so let me look over my list here. I was thinking about projects and what kind of projects I prefer to make, okay, so what I was talking about before in terms of practical projects and like joyful smaller projects, I really love to make small things, small boxes. Oh, here we have one of the yo-yos that I made a whole bunch of yo-yos the other day. This is my favorite. And small things that enable you to, in an ideal, I was thinking, okay, so what's the ideal project? The ideal project has wood, leather, and possibly lighting, or just wood and leather. I think most projects get enhanced by leather, which really reminds me that I need to, I really want to make another wood and leather box. A while back now, I made a series of wood and leather boxes. They are art boxes and writing boxes. I have one of them. You can get it. Here's this box. So this is one of the boxes, and this one has writing supplies in it. And this is just like, I think this is a good example of the ideal project in the sense that it incorporates so many things, right? You have the, like on the inside here looks nice too, because it has leather and it has holders for pens and scissors and paper and things like that. It incorporates joinery, nice wood, and this one has both oak and walnut, and then it also incorporates leather and it's functional. Right? I have another box in the house that is like an art box, and in that one I have a lot of paints and brushes and things like that, and I use that one all the time actually in my house. So I really want to kind of do some more boxes kind of like that incorporate both wood and leather, because I think those are really fun. And when you're creating something on a small scale like that, you can be a little bit more, play around with joinery, right? And different techniques. Because when you're doing something rather large, that's not the time to be messing around with a new joint or to practice your dovetails, at least not from me, you know. Others that are more skilled in the area, that's fine for. But when it comes to small, very manageable projects that first of all don't use a lot of wood, not using a lot of wood I like the idea that you're not possibly messing up a lot of stock, and you get to kind of highlight the nice things about a special piece of wood that you might have. And so, how long has it been since you made a chair? I feel like I first started watching your channel when you made chairs. You might mean the little stool, like a long time ago. I was making a whole bunch of stools with like upholstered seats. That was like some of the first videos. If you mean that, I've also since made like garden chairs, kids chairs. I think that's about it in my chair experience. I've been thinking lately though, however, in talking about chairs, that it would be really cool to make a rather simple chair concept where you have one side, the arms and the legs, and the other side, and then you have like a leather seat and a leather back, and then connected in some other way. That is like one of those projects that I've been meaning to do for a long time. And the same thing, kind of a stool in that sense, like one of those camping stools. Those are my favorite types of furniture, like campaign furniture, which makes you think of, out of Africa or something, where the British had an expedition and they brought, desks and stuff like that, but things that belong in that world that often incorporate leather and box joints, and oak. Very utilitarian and practical pieces. That is what I like more than anything. And I was thinking about that, people's different approaches to woodworking. How some people are really into, the decorative aspect of something, carving, things like that, and I like that as well. But what I think is really interesting, what I really like, is when the joinery is part of the decorative aspect, when you can see how something is constructed, right? Which is why I really like box joints. And dovetails. Dovetails are like a little fancy. I'm like, but dovetails are fun, but I don't think that they are like super, interesting. They're fussy, right? And you have to practice a lot to get really good at them. I like things that, one thing that I've been kind of thinking about lately that I've been getting into is Japanese joinery. Or to say that I've been getting into it might be an overstatement. I've been thinking a lot about the Japanese joinery, and I've been making a lot of sketches, and I've been reading stuff about it, kind of preparing myself mentally to do it. And I like the concept of joinery, that, through joinery, mortise and tenons and things like that, where you can actually see how the pieces are constructed. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about in that sense. And then the same thing kind of goes with wood. I was like thinking about the type of wood that I ideally go for. And it's almost always like white oak. I think it's on top of that list, just because it is so durable, right? It is so utilitarian. It has the aspect of water. I mean, it's not waterproof, but it is not nearly as. They used to build boats out of white oak, so it is very durable, and that's what I have actually flooring here in the shop. Here is made out of white oak, and in the big shop too I have flooring made out of white oak, and they have held up really, really great. And even in the big shop where we park the car, sometimes white oak has held up in a really great way. So I just really love white oak. But then of course I also think that whatever wood you can get your hands on is the best wood, right? And it doesn't much matter whether that is pallet wood or pine or whatever. Talking about pine, I've been having so much fun. So a little while ago I made a video about iron. And applying iron to oak. Go back to oak again, because there's a lot of tannins in oak, right? And just the concept of tannins in general is a subject that I'm fascinated by, because it is in so many different things, and it creates different things. And pine, if you apply an iron solution to pine, you get a much not as strong a reaction. Like when you put iron on oak, you get a dark gray. It is so wild. Like you you didn't think that that was gonna happen. Like I was kind of just expecting a relatively not a very strong stain, but it physically changes in such a dramatic way. It's so cool. But then I rather like the way it made all these different woods change. This, you know, and when I was talking about iron, okay, an iron solution, what do you mean? I mean steel wool that has been soaking in vinegar. Although you can use rusty nails or whatever as well. And over time, you give it a week, give it 10 days, or give it longer. I have let it sit for months. You get this kind of rusty looking liquid, and basically the metal has all disintegrated. And then you can dilute that with a little bit of water if you want, or you can just use it as is. And actually I did some tests where I diluted it quite dramatically. I think I had 8 parts water, 1 part iron solution, and it still made the oak quite dark. So that was kind of I was blown away by that. I thought that was really cool. So I was thinking that if I had, I think if that it would be super cool to put that kind of iron solution on a oak floor, or an oak accent wall, you know, or something like that. But even using like it on cherry, I used it on cherry and maple. Yeah, also pretty dark results, even though they're not supposed to be a lot of tannins in cherry or maple. Although the level of tannins change depending on the type of wood. Even within one tree there can be different levels of tannins in different parts of the tree depending on the growing conditions and things like that. So anyway, it's not like clinical. It's not like, okay, this is how much tannin is in different wood, but oak is supposed to have a lot of tannins. And this you can see in oak galls, oak acorns, the bark, things like that. Lately I've been getting into fabric dyeing as well, and when you do an acorn bath, let acorns soak, and then you add iron, or you let the fabric soak in that and kind of cook in that solution, and then you add iron. The fabric goes from being kind of brown from the acorns to this dark gray again. It's wild again. Anyway, it's one of my, I'm really into that right now. I'm really really into iron and tannins and dyeing things like that, natural dyes, which is why I think it's kind of wild with the whole iron on wood. Okay, let me go back to some comments now. What power tool? I think what power tool is the more useful? Okay, so this is one of those questions that kind of come back to from time to time, and I always come back to the point of view that if I had to pick one power tool, I would probably pick the table saw, because you're so lost without it, and it opens up so many doors. I remember not having a table saw and then getting a table saw, and it was a big difference. Just the kind of the things you could suddenly build, the wood you could work with. I mean, I guess it would be easy to say like the CNC machine, because there's so many different tools within the CNC machine. You can use it as a jointer, as a planer, as a cutter. I mean, it's wild. But I think I would always kind of go back to the table saw, like in terms of power tools. If you're talking about stationary power tools, but then of course there's always you know, if you don't go that route, I would just say like a circular saw, right? Because it's pretty much the same, just a little bit more annoying to deal with. There's the field desks. Yes, Eric. Hi, Eric. I love, you know, people pop up and I recognize them. Anyway, field desks, writing desks are cool. Yes, I really like the idea of like field desks. That is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of campaign furniture. There's a lot of cool designs out there. Very sleek, very simple. Some brass. Sometimes brass goes so well with oak too, right? Let's see. Hello from Texas. Hi. Who knew there would be so much chemistry in woodworking? I think there's a lot of chemistry in pretty much everything when you look at it. Lately I've been getting really into trees. Like, I've been into wood for a long time in terms of building, but I always felt rather removed from from the trees themselves and where the wood came from. And I kind of made it my mission this past year to familiarize myself with all the trees in my surrounding when I go around our backyard, our property, or in the parks, in the woods, to really identify what they all are, and then read about them and the barks and how they are different, and then put them in the dye pot too, and use them to extract color, which I've been experimenting with lately, but I haven't had good results with that in terms of dyeing fabric using barks, even though there's supposed to be a lot of really cool dyes in bark. But it kind of like, once you familiarize yourself with some basic trees, you kind of like, it's kind of blows your mind that you didn't know this before. Like, before this, I was oblivious to what a beech looked like, especially the barks, because the barks are tricky, I think. Leaves you can always identify in a different way, right? White oak, red oak. Let's see, white oak is the pointy, red oak is the smooth on the leaves. I think that's what it is. I mix it up sometimes. I made a video about it, but everything, if you only knew how many things I made videos about that I've forgotten about. I'm really the worst when it comes to retaining information in terms of like model numbers. If anybody asks me, hey, what's the model number of your bandsaw, I'm like, I have no idea. Literally nothing. Have you ever worked in black oak? No, I never had. You mean like bog oak, I guess? I never had, and I always thought that was really cool. I don't know where I know that there's like bogged oak is it somewhere in England or Scotland? Because that's when it's been lying in it's like swamps or in water for a really long time, right? But I have never had a chance to work with it. But I think it is even heavier and denser, right? Really hard on the tools. Let's see. The yo-yo videos was really fun to watch. Thanks, Jason. I enjoyed your method in regards to size and wood density while designing. That's the thing, right? It's kind of fun when you are building something where the qualities of the wood really matter, because okay, you build a piece of furniture, and the way that the quality of the wood matters is, yes, the weight of it, if it's difficult to work with the wood, just the general like appearance of it, right? The grain, what it looks like, the size, whatever. But it's kind of cool to do something where the weight or the feel of the wood really matters, and that was what was really cool about the yo-yo. It dropped on the floor. So this one right here, actually I have more, hold on, I have more of them over here. So, here we have an example of the red oak, and this is red oak too. Let's see. So this one has the iron solution applied to the oak, which makes it look kind of like looks more like a walnut, right? And this one is just. Did I say this is red oak? It's not white oak. Why is it red? Yeah, anyway. And this, on the other hand, is a tropical wood. This is much heavier, even though it is smaller than these are. And this is also rounded in a different way. And I'm not a professional yo-yoer by any means. Can't hear you. You guys. Maybe try to turn your mic on. Is it only Bill that can't hear me, or can other people hear me? I would assume other people can hear me, since that's the only one message. But let me know if my mic somehow stopped working. Also, let me see here. I said hello. Hi, Andy. I'm sorry if I'm missing any comments that are coming in. Oh, we can hear you. Great. Sounds it's fine. Good. I'm going in between my OBS software, which is like a broadcasting software, which I guess anybody who's familiar with Livestream knows these things, but I am not, so I'm just getting familiar with the software here. So I'm going in between the YouTube Studio and the OBS. And I know that you can do some fancy stuff within the OBS. You can add graphics and stuff and the videos if you want to, but one thing at a time, right? Back to my yo-yos! Okay, this yo-yo right here, I cut by hand, or not by hand, but on the bandsaw. So it's not perfectly round. And initially I was thinking that might have been an issue, that it needed to be super round. But I guess not, because it works just as well as this one. But it was kind of fun. I like taking a project like that and kind of looking at it from different angles, right? And seeing what works and what doesn't work, or what's worthwhile and what's not worthwhile. One thing that definitely is worthwhile when it comes to yo-yos is the kind of wood in terms of weight, especially using something like this that is much heavier and much denser. Okay, so let me go back here. In black oak it's easy to break tools. I can imagine. Let's see, Don says that my solar power station reviews are very helpful. Thank you. I always so that's another thing that I do. Sometimes I like playing around with like solar and batteries and things like that, and I get to review different solar generators, and some of them are really great. And you know, after you have reviewed a couple, though, you know, you try to come up with with new things, because it's I don't know. I was thinking about that. I think about that a lot. Like, what makes a good video? Because obviously, if it's somebody building something, it's the process of like learning something, sharing something, like being there as you build something. And then you have more technical products like the solar generators, and there you actually want to convey information, right? You want to convey like, what is this? How does it work? How does it work in a practical way? So that's kind of how I look at more like product related projects. Like how to make videos about them, like what makes a good video like that. I don't know, making videos is tricky. Sometimes that's one aspect that I always come back to it, because I really like it. I really enjoy the editing part of it. That during all these years of making videos on YouTube, I've kind of gone back and forth on the level of like production that I want to put into videos. Sometimes I have put a lot of thought and effort, you know, doing a lot of drawings and a lot of music and a lot of voiceover, a lot of sketches, and put a lot of time into editing. And then sometimes I just get annoyed with the whole thing, and I figured it doesn't really matter, and you kind of go back to just doing things in a basic way. And I think it kind of depends on the subject and the type of video and what warrants it as well, like what you're trying to get across, right? But when it comes back to it, I think that editing is really fun. It's like a little puzzle that you get to put together, right? So I rather like that. Let's see here. How does one start a workshop from scratch? Well, if I was starting a workshop from scratch, I would start with just like, I would start very small. I would pick a project that you're trying to do, and then I would see what is the most minimal things that I need to create that project. And to be honest, that might just be a handsaw and a chisel and a hand plane, right? Maybe that's a good place to start. Or if you're not into that kind of thing, it would just be like a drill and a circular saw, pocket jig, you know? I would just start with something and kind of work your way up from there. Think, what is it that I need to create this one thing? Because next time, if you like it, next time you build something else, you're inevitably going to say like, oh, to do this, I really need this thing, right? And then, of course, you know, look at used tools, make friends with other woodworkers, trade, borrow. If there is a tool library where you live, that seems like a really awesome way to go. So what projects do you have planned for this summer? Well, I haven't thought that far. There's a lot of things that I kind of have in the works immediately. Currently, I have videos, first of all, that I kind of have to, there's a coffee station in the house that I've been meaning to make videos. I have so much footage that I'm working on right now. I got some paper right there. I'm doing a bookbinding project, so I got that. And there's like a whole bunch of stuff around here. I want to do a battery backup system in the main shop, so when the power goes out, and just kind of better solar setup, better battery setup, like this, clean things up a lot. And I do think that primarily I do want to focus on small things. I do want to focus on making, things that I enjoy, which are like small boxes, storage, various ways to organize things. I always come back to that. I always think that is the most fun thing. Various ways to organize things. And so, let's see, what else do we have? Check out any projects or resources you recommend for working with leather. I've never tried it, but love how you mix it with wood. Well, first of all, in terms of like leather can be expensive if you go for, depends on the kind of leather you buy, but I would just start with getting a basic hide, one that's not dyed in any way. What do you call those? Utility grade? And those you can find at leather supply stores or online. Or an even easier or cheaper way to go would be to dig up like a leather jacket at a vintage store, a Goodwill, or someone's closet, something nobody uses, because leather doesn't really go bad in that sense. And then cut out all the pieces, see what you've got to work with. The one thing that I really like with leather is that you don't actually need a ton of leather for most projects, right? Having a little bit of it can give you a really big effect of something, right? So that's kind of cool. And you can add something like you can kind of replace hardware with it, like create pulls or add straps or add like a little pocket. And when it comes to actually working with leather, that's what's so great about it, is because you barely need any tools at all. You need like a hole puncher so that you can especially a leather one with several prongs is really useful, because you want to cut those holes so you can do stitching, and then get like some thread, like waxed thread for leather. You want to use something a little bit heavier, and then needle is pretty much it. I mean, of course, you can also get stuff so you can put in what do you call those things? Like the buttons. The hardware. What do you call this kind of? I can't remember, but you need like a little metal punch thing to put those kind of buttons in. But that's what's so great about it. Yeah, like a razor blade. You probably have more or less all the tools that you need to work with leather anyway. And that's why it is such a great low-key craft. Also is really great. Another thing I've been thinking a lot about is just the aspect of, like, it's really fun to work with big tools or whatever, but at the end of the day, what really matters is being able to actually get it done, right? I think that the absolute worst thing in the world is when you have you want to do something, you have like a project or something you want to do, but then you get stuck at that phase because the conditions aren't perfect. Maybe you don't have the the right tools, or you don't have the right space, or you're dealing with too many people around you who don't want to listen to banging or sawdust or whatever. And that is the absolute worst, when you're held up because you can't move on. At least I feel that way. Like, you're stuck there, and if you were able to just go through it and work on it and then move on to something else after that, you would be released from that. So it's really it's very frustrating when you're stuck not completing something. So I think that in many ways what matters more than anything is being able to actually do it. And then how you accomplish that matters less in a way. And then if you need to use some inferior tool or borrow a tool or whatever, or maybe modify your project slightly, that's all that matters. And if you are at a point in your life where maybe you don't have a big workshop or a dedicated space for it, but you're still really aching to create, then pick something else that you can do that within that other situation, right? And leatherworking is really great from that point of view. It's great if you live in an apartment, or if you don't have a very big space, or if you have young kids around, or whatever, you don't have things are not set up for you to do other things. Then leatherworking is really great, and hand tool work is really great from that point of view too. Carving is really great. So I've come to appreciate things like that more, where you may not have it be the optimal thing, but you're still getting it done. You're getting something done. You're getting to create something, and I think that is highly like valuable and overlooked sometimes. That your project may take a lot slower if you are cutting the box joints by hand. But in some ways, does that really matter? Unless, of course, it's like you really need this thing right now. You really need that shelf. Then it's a practical project, and then you might as well just use plywood and and something else. Snap fasteners. That's the the sawdust factory. Thanks. Yes, that's the word for that. Yes, Jason says he uses an old leather belt to create a snap and snap catch for corded headphones that was made from scraps of black walnut. I bet that's really nice. That's another, yeah, exactly. Leather belt, an old leather, like there's a lot of used leather products around. If you go to your local, Goodwill or wherever, or just look in your own closet, chances are you're gonna find an old leather belt or something that no longer is being used, or a jacket that maybe has like ripped somewhere, and then you can use that. Like leather belts are great from that point of view. Completing something, yes, Eric, exactly. Like just the idea of completing something, I think is worth more than almost anything. And getting to do whatever it is that you really feel like you need to do. And Sasaki says he likes leathercraft because it is all manual and relatively silent. Exactly. It's almost like if you have a perfect setup and you're alone, you're not bothering anybody, then you may not even really think about the fact that you are making a lot of noise, you are making a lot of dust, you're requiring a lot of space. It's only when all those factors are being removed, right? When suddenly you have to take into account, like, oh, maybe you don't want to spend too much money on materials, or you don't want to create an environment that is like very loud or very dusty or whatever. And those are the times when it's good to find ulterior kind of pathways to create something. And for me, that has been hand tools, leatherworking, bookbinding, sewing, stuff like that. CNC work and table saw and bandsaw stuff falls in the other category, which is really great and really fun, but not always the most practical, right? Okay, well, we are coming up on an hour here now. This has been really fun. I think everything has been kind of... I just want to try something real quick. I inserted an ad. It says ad inserted. I don't know what that means. Still figuring everything out here. So, yeah. Let me know. I'll keep this video up. Let me know in the comments on this video once I have archived it if there is, I don't know, other questions. If you would be interested in more live streams in the future. I think it might be kind of fun to pick a topic and then really kind of dive into that topic on the live stream. This is more of a test run and more of a kind of all over the place general talking about stuff, right? So, yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me. Oh, somebody got an ad. I was wondering why that popped up. I got one from Michael's Craft Store. It just said here that you could insert an ad. So I was like, I just want to try it out, see what it's like. What does it work like? Okay. It's good to know that things are working. Okay, thank you. Mic, cam setup, OBS works great. Lighting looks great. Oh, good. Bandwidth, no stoppages or buffering. Okay, I have a question. I have been messing around with the clarity of the camera all morning. In my program, it looks exceptionally blurry. When I'm looking at my camera, it looks very clear. And it's a good quality lens and a good quality DSLR. Is it very blurry before I hop off? Maybe a little bit. Maybe it's like a software thingy. I have to investigate it further. Mark says, thank you for 10 years of inspiration and teaching. 10 years, oh my god. I've learned so much from you. Thank you so much, everyone. Anyway, let me know in the comments too, but like, was the video looking weird? Anyway, thank thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. And I'll see you soon. Bye. A little blurry.